No, that's okay, I'm here.
I just don't want it back.
All right.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. It's Thursday, April 4th. This is the meeting of the Bylaws Adhoc Advisory Committee. We have, I'm sorry.
And the meeting is being recorded.
Oh, yes, thank you. This meeting is being recorded. And present, we have Janine Domina, we have Eugene Ahart, Lucy Dalton, and momentarily we expect Jonathan Jay. So we'll just go ahead and proceed with the meeting. I think I hear him. No? Okay. All right. We'll call the meeting to order. Our first item on this agenda is public comments. No?
Oh, hi. I never looked at the agenda, so I didn't know we had open time. So, I'm here for clarification and process. The COA revised their bylaws, and the board approved it. It was discussed, it was reviewed, and that's not the issue. I understand why it was done and understand it. However, I wanted to know.
Hi, Jonathan.
Hi, I'm Yelda Cohen.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Jay.
Nice to meet you. And so it occurred to me yesterday, after our meeting, that I don't recall the revised approved bylaws being brought back to the committee, to the board. So I emailed the chair, which is Janet Kane, and she said that it went through the approval process and that the selectmen sign off on it. And so then I emailed Ed Gibson to send me a copy because I didn't have one. I haven't responded. He hasn't responded because I've been running around this since I just got home and then came back out. So I wanted to ask, in terms of the function of this committee, you're reviewing the bylaws. Are you changing the bylaws and then they're going to the appropriate level of, let's say, ZBA or planning, or how is that being?
We're not touching the ones that have their own bylaws. We're
Okay.
just working on this town's general.
The general bylaws,
Yes.
which have to go to the Attorney General.
Yes, the
Okay.
town bylaws. And the town bylaws will contain a description of all the boards and the committees, very similar to the descriptions that's in the annual report or on the town website. But the real substance of each of the committees and boards we'll refer them to those particular committee bylaws, because that's...
Right.
That's
That's
yours.
what they
zoning,
do, it's not with us.
we work with someone on the outside that kind of gives us the
Right.
technical side, and we always have to add them to the
Right. Yeah,
general.
they have to go through your own committee and then the select board, and then that would be it. I
Yeah.
believe that only the
General.
town general bylaws would have to go to the Attorney General, and maybe some
Okay.
of the very specific committees like Board of Health and...
Do they have to go to the town meeting also? And then,
The general town,
okay,
yes.
so town
Yes.
meeting and then the Attorney General.
But not yours.
Okay, all right, so then ours get, once we approve them, they go to Ed, who then, does he review them and give them to the select board
Yeah.
for final vote?
Right.
Okay, and then they're in place.
Right.
Now, are they effective the time that they're approved, as opposed to they're effective in the new fiscal year? Because there are some bylaws that are pertinent to in time versus a fiscal year change that would change the dynamic of any committee or any kind of, well, I mean, we vote officers in May, so that's not the issue. But so that's really, as I kind of thought about this, and I don't have a problem with the bylaw changes. That's not the issue here.
No.
It's process, because it keeps changing. And
Well.
I've been around a long time, and, the rules kind of get tweaked.
And one of the things that we have to incorporate into these bylaws is the very thing you're talking about, process, for everybody, so that we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we'll get to that. But I don't have the answer about the date. We can look it up, unless, Jonathan, you are aware. I mean, he has experience in
An expert?
ordinance,
Not really.
ordinance kind of, organizational kind of
I worked on bylaws in corporate and nonprofits, and there are some that are effective because they pertain to an action that is time sensitive to the action of the board versus what you're trying to do as an organization moving forward.
Yeah.
And, you know, those two things, I didn't think of asking, so it wasn't something that I kind of, you know, let go by, or it was just this process that I'm.
Janine may know,
As far as
given her experience.
the Council on Aging
Right.
bylaws, I don't think that's in here.
No.
Is that?
There's a
I think
description,
there is
there's a description
Yeah.
about
It's
that.
17.
Remember we
Yeah,
said,
Article
It was
17.
very small, it was just the number of
About-
members
yeah.
and so forth.
Right, but it is not the bylaw.
right, that's what we're
Okay,
saying.
so what would you call it then in your bylaw?
This is
It's-
general.
That we exist?
Yes,
That's all, yes. And it consists of 7 persons appointed by the select board from the voters and residents of the town. And the chair of the Council on Aging shall be elected annually by said council by vote of its membership. And then, this, I believe, was added recently. The COA director is hired by and ultimately responsible to the appointing authority, the select board. The select board has the power to hire, evaluate, and/or terminate the director and may delegate some or all of these functions to the town administrator.
The select board, that's the appointing authority, he has the authority to hire, fire.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's not exactly correct, because the way it is now, she reports directly to Ed Gibson, and he's the one that evaluates. So,
but that's given to him by the select board, so he acts on behalf of the select board. Town administrator and select board are almost essentially one, for all intents and purposes, especially for management, I think, one and the same.
is that the same for all department heads then? Because I understand that Ed oversees all of the department heads, so does he also have the authority to act in the same fashion that he does with the COA director?
Well, yeah.
I thought there was a distinction, you know.
If they were appointed, I don't think there's a difference.
Right.
No.
But if they're elected,
There's a
that's different.
Elected by the town,
Right.
by the
Okay.
voters. That's the distinguishing feature. For instance, the police, the fire, the accountants, I mean, think of all the departments that
Yeah.
report to Ed.
Some people
Council on
have
Aging.
contracts and others don't. So,
Right.
see, that's where the other mix is.
No, because we have, the town hall workers don't have contracts.
Right.
But like the accountant does, I believe.
Well, individual with,
Right.
Okay.
but the,
Treasurer, she's elected.
she's
Yes, the
elected.
treasurer elected,
Okay.
town clerk is elected,
Is the treasurer still elected?
yes.
Yes. Yeah.
So that leaves, the rest of the departments, for the most part, report to Ed, to the select board by way of Ed, except for the water commission and
That's
the
a
board of
separate
health
enterprise.
Well, the assessors.
and the assessors.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you think that somebody looking at the general bylaws, it satisfies the understanding of how those boards would function separately to what you're addressing in the organizational side of
Yeah,
things?
I think so, but before this goes on to the next step, which would be to the select board, we definitely are going to run all of these sections by each specific department or board, whoever it covers, to make sure that they're in agreement. I mean, the changes are not substantial to that. I mean, they're more to, for clarification or simplicity of language, so that more people can read the bylaws and understand them.
And the general bylaws is simply setting up the general way the government of this town works.
Yeah.
Different groups have their own bylaws to govern their group.
Okay.
Okay.
So we'll get
Which is
this
not
out to everybody.
Included.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Okay.
That clarifies things in terms of the two. And I forgot the general bylaws versus the individual bylaws, but I was really addressing, the layers of who's who. Okay, thank you very
All right,
much.
thank you.
Bye-bye.
All righty.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. That was our first. I thought we were going to have another public comment, but we didn't today, so that was good.
Oh, good.
Okay, so first. Okay,
Approval of minutes.
based on the agenda, yes, the agenda, we should take a look at the minutes. Of March 28th. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of March 28th?
I say move.
Second? Second, Lucy? Any discussion?
Just to let you know, I did add the noise bylaw to the working version of the bylaws. Just so you know.
Okay. All right. Okay, so with that, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, here we go. Thanks, Janine. Nice job. I did mention, though, before we started the meeting, that I did hear from someone complaining about the noise from the gun range after we went through. I'm like, do we really want to go there? But we can put that off till we have to understand the relationship, yeah.
Before anything is done, I think we need to really have a review of what is going on down there. Like someone paying attention, because I can hear it, and I only hear it on the weekends and on Thursday night. I do not hear it during the day. So if they're saying that, we need somebody
To verify that.
to verify that, or whether they just are.
And I think, and I was also saying, I think people feel that it's getting louder because there's more development, more trees are cut down.
Yeah.
So the sound carries.
Right.
where
And the
before it
leaves.
didn't. And in the winter, too.
Right.
Yeah,
They
the
hear it.
leaves aren't on the trees.
Right.
Yeah.
That's when they're off, I hear it better.
Yep.
Not that it bothers me, it bothers my dog, but that's another point.
So I'm new to this and still becoming acquainted with the process. But unofficially, is something like the noise bylaw, which has the potential of being controversial, I mean, for I would think small things, but it's still, that's the type of thing, because people take that as part of their quality of living, quality of life, or what they feel is their right to do certain things as well. Would something like this be run by other select board members or by Ed in advance before we're finished with our work, just to get a sense of, is this going to present a problem that you foresee? I don't think we have to do that for all the articles.
Well, I think they have to see all the.
Well, I'm talking about before we feel that we're finished with our job,
I
when
see.
we're still got our draft.
Okay.
And it's not ready for presentation yet, to kind of run by what we're talking about and to see whether there's any thoughts from a political perspective, or,
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good idea because this is a new bylaw.
Yeah.
Everything else is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we can, I think, can kind of pick out the ones where there might be
Controversy.
controversy. There's not going to be on some of them.
Sure.
And say, how can we get this checked out?
Yeah. The last time, I think the select board was approached, which was about a year ago, they said they wanted everything together to look at it all at once, not bits and pieces. So that's kind of why we're holding back. But for something that's new like this, I think we could kind of
Yeah, and
Yeah.
does it run afoul of the, if you just have a two-person conversation or a three-person conversation with someone about it, does it run afoul of the open meetings law?
It depends
not
on
everyone.
what three people.
Yeah.
If it's a majority that constitutes a quorum for that board or committee, then you don't want
Yeah,
to do that without
we'd
posting.
have to have 3
yeah,
of us
Okay,
at
right.
the same time talking with, if there was somebody that was concerned, to have a quorum.
Yeah, but if you want to have an informal conversation, you could have one person from 3 different boards, and you're fine.
okay, but what if you spoke with other members of the select board? Would it have to be limited to how many at one time, or?
All you have to
Yeah.
do is,
Yes.
all we would have to do is post the meeting.
Yes.
And that would
If it's actually, yeah, but is it considered a meeting if you were to talk with 2 others? I'm just talking about informal discussions as to, take a look at this. Is this gonna, can you see any problems that this is gonna present? It's like on the noise, since it's a new one.
I don't know exactly how to avoid what you might run into in Southampton. I know some select boards have had a little problem when a quorum have been at a bar and we're discussing what had been going on. That can be problematic and open meeting law challenge.
Okay. Well, I'm not advocating anything that's going to cause a problem. I just get the idea out there, the general idea of, it'd be nice to kind of, if there's some way to vet some of this stuff unofficially,
Yep.
that's within the legal limits to do so.
What if we submitted the noise bylaw to the town administrator, just to
Take a
have him take a look at
Yeah.
it?
Yeah,
If that
Yeah,
makes sense.
he's probably, of any representation of the select board, he probably has a better
sense of,
Okay, sounds
sense
good.
of all of this, yeah.
Sounds good.
So does someone want to make a motion?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to submit the noise bylaw that we have completed to the town administrator for his review.
Initial review.
okay.
Yeah,
second.
initial or informal
Yeah.
review. Okay.
Okay, I'll second that. Okay. Oh, any discussion? Okay. That's a good point, Jonathan.
Right.
Thank you.
I-
It may save us down the road.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that if it just, all of a sudden it's public, and then people weigh in from different angles, about the gun club noise, and about some of the stuff that we actually have in it, about dogs or dogs or loud radio noises or the actual hours,
Well, I can tell you one thing, that if there's a quorum there and they aren't discussing this, there's no, it's not you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Because I sit on another board. And a lot of times, I'm at the select board meeting, not as a representative of that, but of community preservation. But if Aaron and Greg are there, now there's a quorum if we were to discuss school committee.
Yeah, you have to be careful. As long as, my understanding is, as long as you're not deliberating,
Yeah.
you're okay.
And I don't even sit near them.
Well, then, yes, that's.
Yeah,
so
you don't want
can't
to give the
deliberate.
appearance.
Right.
All right, so we need to take a vote. All those in favor of requesting that Ed review? Aye?
I
Okay, any opposed? Okay, thank you. All righty, back to the agenda. Okay.
I think in the process, we just have to be mindful that we're not stepping on anyone's rights for anything. So I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, then we're moving on to the next, which was the select review, the select board section.
Oh, when I made copies for everyone,
Yeah.
did you get your copies from this morning?
From this morning, or
Just now?
from last week? You had
No,
sent
I just,
something.
Yeah, she
I
just
just
had
had,
packets
I had a
out.
packet for you too. It was the agenda for
Oh,
today.
from-
The minutes of the
Oh,
28th.
you sent it around?
No, you have it right here. Did you get? see
Right
it?
here.
Yep.
I mean,
Okay.
I'm sorry. You brought it here.
Yeah.
Or,
I
okay, I
did.
thought you were talking about emailing, okay.
No.
Yeah.
But I just noticed my copier is color.
Yeah.
So I kind of have what I wanted to discuss here in red, but
Yeah.
obviously in your copies.
I think you have my.
You have it in red, huh?
Okay, well, that's,
The ones that
take
you
it,
gave us.
because I'm using.
Mine
On
is
email. If it was the copy I just brought, it
Yeah,
wouldn't have the
It's
red.
got the red, but the email didn't.
So
I
what we
highlighted
should
mine,
have
so.
here in front of us is the select board, the town clerk, the treasurer collector, the general government. That was all included in your packet?
Yep.
I did not
No
include
general.
general government.
Okay, just those three then, thank you.
Okay, and the select board, I think you just did one page today. Oh, it's on the back? It's not on that one, I got it.
Oh,
just
you
from
know
what
what, and I
emailed
just
before,
made
but what
copies.
Francine has.
Okay,
is-
I'll,
Yeah,
I'll,
well,
I mean, I
either.
printed it anyways and
Okay.
highlighted what I needed.
all right.
Oh, I've got this
Okay.
from what you sent before.
Okay. Did anyone check about, on the second paragraph, this shall not apply to such suits that are within the scope and duties of the tax collector? To clarify that?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, I put brackets around it for some reason. What was the question about it?
Whether or not the tax collector could independently, independent of the select board,
yes.
pursue
Right.
certain legal
Yeah.
actions.
So we need to, so that still needs to be checked out, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So before we get there, just, I think this pretty much captures what we talked about. And most of what I've written down, there's a couple things that I didn't notice the first time around, just little grammatical stuff. But there's a couple things I think that we weren't going to do or that we misunderstood. So in the first, and these are very small, the select board consists of 5 members. I think we're going to take each out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oops, okay.
right.
And I missed that, I'm sorry.
Oh, don't worry about it.
Don't worry. That's fine.
We're not going to talk because we know what we're capable
Yeah.
of. And in the second paragraph, in 2 places, it says a legal counsel. I would just say legal counsel.
Legal counsel, yeah.
Yeah. And then that can be
And
interpreted.
or employ,
Legal.
that's the
Yeah.
A. Okay.
Yeah, that's one place. And then in the, oh, then there's a the legal counsel.
Yeah.
In the 4th line. I would take out the beginning of the 4th line of that paragraph.
Yeah.
Take out the,
No. Take out the.
yeah. And then in the 3rd line where it says town and its various officers and boards, its I make all one word, I mean no apostrophe.
It's right above the,
Right above legal counsel.
In the third paragraph?
No, 3rd line,
you'll
of the
take
2nd
out-
paragraph.
So the,
No, just take out the apostrophe and its. So it's just ITS.
IT.
Yeah. Okay.
it's various, yes.
yeah, because it is,
Right.
Yeah. And in the 3rd paragraph, first line, town meeting.
It's
We're
capitalized.
capitalizing meeting in every place, where it's town meeting? Okay.
Yes,
It should be capitalized.
yes.
And then in the third line, it says the select board or its designee, comma, shall not contract. The question is, do we have commas or no commas? Because if we're having commas when we say or its designee, then it should be after the select board. I would probably, but if we're not doing comma there, then we shouldn't do a comma after designee.
I think it
So
reads.
how do you want to
yeah.
do it?
My favor is to do without the comma.
Me too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just say the select board or its designee shall, not no commas.
Shall not contract for any purpose, terms, and conditions consistent. Okay.
And your question, Janine, any, about whether to, I think
Because
we
we're
just,
saying shall not contract for any
Yeah.
purpose, terms, or conditions inconsistent with any.
oh, I see.
You know, it's just, we're repeating.
No, they're two different things. One is on one side, what's in the, is what you contract for. And none of that should conflict with none of Massachusetts general law or town bylaw, right?
Right. Okay, so that's good to leave it in.
Yeah, I think that makes it, yeah. Oh, I see, because after that you have any again, with any applicable provision. Oh, okay.
What if we say,
So-
or conditions inconsistent with the applicable provisions of any Mass General Law or town bylaw?
Or just cross it off completely.
Or just take it out?
With applicable provisions.
The select board says we shall not contract for any purpose, terms, or conditions inconsistent with applicable provisions.
I would say any
Yeah, I
applicable
would say
provisions.
any, yeah.
Then the question
Just
is,
leave it
do we
there,
need
yeah.
any, and I don't know, whether we have any before Massachusetts general law or town bylaw.
Oh, yeah, right.
What if we remove that, any?
Yeah, I think
I
we
think
should.
it still works.
Yeah.
So you want to leave any applicable provision of Massachusetts. So you're taking out the second any.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would take that out. The select board or its designee shall.
And then is Massachusetts, is it usually done that way, just with abbreviation, or do we spell it?
A lot of times you see M period, G period,
Okay.
L period.
But otherwise, if it's not abbreviated to that, do we just spell out the word Massachusetts rather than
MA
say?
general law.
It doesn't really, whatever you want it to.
Okay.
So we want to spell it out, or is it okay to put Mass as you have it? I don't know.
Or should we put MGL?
Well,
No, we should put any,
Well, you've used MGL up
yeah,
above.
true, right, yeah.
But usually we do that when saying a
First time.
specific, well, also it's a specific law that you're referring to,
Yeah.
right? And
so then we should
code.
spell it out.
I would,
Okay.
Yeah.
So Massachusetts.
but I just don't know how it often appears.
Yeah.
And is it of Massachusetts, and is it referred to as general law or ever?
Yep.
So you don't say Massachusetts general laws, or? Okay, so that's understood, Massachusetts general. And then, or town, I think here you want to say town bylaws of Massachusetts general law or town bylaws.
Yeah.
And again, I keep forgetting, are we capitalizing the L in bylaws for the town or not?
Whatever we decide, just need to
What-
be consistent.
yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, anyways, that's just something we have to come back to when we're finished with the whole
We
thing.
should decide.
Yeah, how it's often referred to.
And I'm looking to see if we use that in the noise one and how we.
It's all capitalized.
Well, here we did it another way. Violations of this bylaw, lowercase.
Well,
Well, that didn't solve it. That just added another question.
It is, I'm wondering in the current bylaws, is there a place that mentions it several times? There isn't even any, is there anything that even talks about how the bylaws are amended? That would mention bylaws a lot.
Maybe we can work on that after when we're organizing everything.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay.
just to replace.
Because we're going to have to be consistent, or
Right.
at least we found that we're,
Yeah.
Sounds good.
We need somebody who is more grammarian than I am to decide whether to capitalize. and-
Yeah, but we do, in the fourth paragraph, want to capitalize.
The B?
At least the B in bylaws, or by these bylaws.
yeah. Initiates legislative policy by inserting articles, warrant, town meeting, signs warrant. Okay.
Yeah, we definitely need to differentiate that
Yeah.
one way or another, with at least one capital.
So on the appointments of, good question, Janine. Select board shall appoint, do we want to call, we say appoint, we should have something, appoint, some phrase, the following positions, it's one possibility, but what about officer, can you call them officers and personnel? Or just personnel?
It's officers and they have dispatchers, I mean,
Right, but is the
He
town
means like-
administrator referred to as an officer, or is the fire chief referred to as an
Well, he's a
officer?
C.
They're town officials.
Officials.
Oh, better. The following officials and other personnel, why don't we, because we are saying police officer, other police officers, other fire department personnel, other highway department personnel.
I think that's-
So when I say the following officials and other personnel, does that work?
Yeah, that works.
Now, do you have the back part?
Yeah, but before we go to the back, police officers, do we want to just make that small letters?
yeah.
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 And do you want to say dispatchers? Add that to it?
Yeah, chief of police and such blur.
Police officers and dispatchers as may be necessary.
So does the select board actually appoint the individual police officers?
They,
Yes.
Fire
on
department
selection,
personnel?
yes, they're presented their
Right.
credentials and then.
Okay, so everyone appointed then to a staff position in the town would be
Yeah.
approved
Yes.
by the select board,
But
ultimately.
I don't think the dispatcher is. I think the dispatcher
Is
is.
just hired by the
is
police
hired
chief.
by the police.
Okay, we'll have to find that out.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that because
Well, they all have to
if
go
we
to
just,
right now.
well, through the process of the
The
PCFs
recommendation.
and all of those
Yeah.
things.
They go to the policy and...
PPP board,
PPP
finance,
Yes.
So
select board,
finance, and then,
select
Well,
board.
so if the
Send it
dispatcher
Right.
has, if all police department personnel have to be appointed by the select board ultimately or approved by,
ultimately,
Yeah, that's all based,
then why not, we say chief of police, comma, and such other police department personnel?
that's fine.
Yeah.
That's very inclusive.
Yeah.
That would cover
Yeah.
everything?
Chief of police and such department personnel.
That's
Yeah.
more inclusive, yeah.
With no comma.
Okay. That's maybe the-
And
okay.
and in D, I take out the comma after highway department personnel.
Coming back to see the fire chief and other such fire department, there's no mention here of the EMS
EMTs.
ambulance
Yeah,
personnel.
right.
And is that separate from the fire department?
Well, they're under the jurisdiction of the fire chief.
yeah.
So would it go under
Well, we do have
such
other
other
fire department personnel.
personnel?
But they're distinguished in budget lines and everything. There's, they're the firefighters, and then there's the emergency medical services, so.
Yeah.
So what if we
just-
put fire chief, EMTs?
And other such fire department and emergency medical personnel.
Well, and is there a head of EMT, or
No.
It's the chief.
Fire chief.
just a fire? So you could say fire chief, comma, and such other fire
And emergency.
department, and you say it's really separate from the fire department?
Well, they're separate people.
Yeah.
Separate people.
Some of them,
but-
some of them
Some
have
of them
dual
are-
certification.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
right.
Some are firefighters
Yes.
and EMTs.
Yep.
And some are
Well,
just.
some of the
one.
police are EMTs too. So,
Yeah, you're right. They're usually the first there.
yeah, some
Well,
of the police are EMTs.
But they're appointed as one thing or another, right? So if I'm in the fire department or I'm in the police department and I'm also EMT, then I'm considered to be, I'm appointed as what? So in the police department, I do some EMT work, but I'm considered police department personnel?
Yes.
Even, and only that? Even though I do some EMT work? I don't have to be appointed twice, right?
No.
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 What's on the sheets that you have to sign?
It's depends on their credentials. It could just say firefighter, it could say, EMT, it could say firefighter / EMT.
So they're all different.
Yeah.
What if
Depends.
we said something like public safety?
Well, here's the question. If, from a personnel practice, I'm considered to be police department or fire department, and I may do some work with the fire chief for EMT work or whatever, I'm still considered to be a member of a certain department, right? And I'm only appointed once, and the same rules govern my salary and my hours of work. So I'm already covered if it says and such other police department personnel or and such other fire department personnel, right?
Should
Right,
be.
but I would have to say fire, in this instance, fire and emergency medical personnel. And others.
I'm okay with adding, I'm
Fire chief.
I'm okay with
What if
adding
we
that
did-
fire department emergency personnel.
Or what if we did fire chief and such other fire department, including personnel, including emergency?
Clinical
That's fine.
technician, oh, yeah, yeah,
That's fine too.
yeah.
So you want to say after fire department personnel, comma?
Yeah.
Including emergency medical personnel.
Okay, and is any of that capitalized? Or
I
is
don't
it-
think so.
Okay,
Maybe
including
it's-
emergency medical personnel?
no.
Great. And I'm wondering, so the next page is, okay, is town accountant.
I have the old
Okay.
version here, yeah. Oh, no, I
Didn't
don't have
make
it.
any changes.
Yeah.
The
The only
highway
change is
okay
is
of
this,
that.
yeah. So after, so we,
Oh.
huh?
I'm sorry, I did. Okay.
we,
Okay, this is what we had said.
oh, but before we get to that.
Oh,
So
okay.
for the appointments of the position, of the officials and other personnel,
So how
do we need some catch-all after the A through E that we have? So town accountant is the E, I'm beginning of the second page. Do we need an F that would say something like, and such other officials and personnel as the town
Which-
requires?
Well, that's the next line, the select board shall appoint members of committees, boards, commissions, councils. Should we make that F
Well,
and cut out the select board part,
well,
the
except,
beginning there?
well, okay.
Or change it up where members of committees, boards, commissions, councils, or groups which are not selected by vote in town elections shall be appointed by the select board.
Well,
Or-
I like it the way that is, because that implies something, a group of people, right? They're not
Yeah.
necessarily personnel, although I don't know, some of the commissions considered personnel?
No, I don't
They get
think so.
paid?
No.
No,
Okay.
but by definition, anybody who's on a committee,
Yeah.
volunteer or
Yeah.
paid,
Right.
is considered a municipal employee.
Right,
Yes.
yes.
Oh, really?
Right.
So-
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so
You
we're...
now have a job.
Yes.
You don't- Unpaid, but you have
Unpaid,
one.
yes.
All right, my voluntary
Right,
service.
that's right,
That's
that's right.
kind of like the being called a volunteer, but, so anyways, so wondering, what if the town was to say, we need this new department? I can't think of one, but I mean, we need someone else, we need a new department, and it will have these functions, and we need someone to head it up. Well, it's not in the bylaws that you have that, but the select board has the authority. No one would question the fact that the select board has that authority. Why not just, or shouldn't question it, but why not just make clear that the executive board does have that, so someone doesn't say, well, you're limited to these
I hear what you're saying.
positions.
Right,
That's right.
yeah.
And it would just be what we call catch-all.
Yeah.
Well, what about people that are working, like the building inspector? Where is he? He's named by them. You don't have anything on,
We don't have the building inspector here.
yeah, it's not just building, there's electrical inspector, there's plumbing inspectors. Some of them work when needed, and some, like the building inspector, have
Regular office.
regular
Isn't the
hours.
Veterans
Right,
Graves
veterans,
officer?
yes,
Or
veterans
Veterans
council,
agent?
yes,
He's
yes,
paid.
yes.
He's paid too.
He's what, veterans?
Veteran
Veterans
agent.
Inspector.
Yeah, the grave officer volunteer.
Are there any
Right,
health?
yeah, the veteran.
Are there any housing
Yes, right,
personnel
but it
that are
was-
We have a
salaried or-
housing committee, but no one,
Okay.
no one in a paid capacity.
Well, what if we just inserted the word individual? The select board shall appoint individuals
Well,
instead of members.
He's talking about forming new committees. Is that what you're talking about?
no, I'm talking about something that would be the equivalent of the, equivalent generically of the highway superintendent or the town accountant or the chief of police. In other words, other personnel.
Okay.
that
Let's say
are-
we ever had enough money that we could hire an IT specialist,
Right,
Yeah.
director,
Yeah.
whatever.
So,
I hear where you're going.
yeah.
but now I'm concerned because we've got apparently, at least 3 people, maybe more, that are don't fall in one of these categories?
Right.
Housing inspector, building inspector, electrical inspector,
Plumbing inspector.
Plumbing,
No.
Veterans Affairs, and they appoint them.
Right. The tree warden.
The tree warden.
Here's another way, and I don't have the exact words yet, but something along the lines of this. Sometimes, and we did this somewhere else, I thought, like in the noise ordinance, what if you said the select board, just say they've got the authority to appoint people? I'm just going to say the idea without the actual language. They've got the authority to appoint people, and it includes, but it's not limited to, the following positions.
Yeah.
So they have the authority to appoint all personnel required for the functioning of the town or something, including but not limited to the following.
To highway.
And then you have the
Right.
general authority
Right.
that stated the
Okay.
select
Yeah.
board is the one that makes these appointments.
Right.
Are you okay with that, Janine?
I am. I also like how we had it, or groups which are not elected by vote in town elections. So I think we have to add that to what you're saying.
Well,
Yes.
okay, so someone who's not that familiar with the full functioning of town government, I see this, and when I see that sentence, I'm saying, oh, okay, so that has to do with these group things, committee,
Right.
board, commissions, consisting of several members. And even though technically they're considered personnel, I'm not saying, oh, that's staff, those are employees of the town. I think of, myself, I'm appointed to the committee, but I'm not appointed as personnel, even though you say I'm technically an employee
By
of the
definition
town.
of the state.
Right,
yes.
and then for purposes of coming under certain statutes and stuff and having certain obligations. But I just think it makes more sense to have that separate, and I like the way it reads now.
Yeah.
That's separate from the fact that the select board has the authority to hire personnel. And if there's ever any overlap, then fine, because it's taken, there's no question. Am I fish or am I fowl? Well, in either case, I'm to be appointed, by the committee. So I wouldn't put individuals in that sentence there, because I like it as it is now, because it takes care of these groups that are usually thought of as going beyond actual personnel.
The ones that I know of, Conservation Commission is appointed, Historical Commission is appointed,
Council on Aging is appointed.
Council on Aging.
Yeah. But I think of that being different from building inspector.
Yeah.
And
Yes,
scope
right,
and stuff.
right.
And
Seems
so,
like a-
Yeah.
and so the beauty of that sentence, I think that's just a great clause to have that
Yeah.
we have now, appoint all members of committees, boards, commissions, et cetera. But I would suggest just rewording just have a different introduction for the different
But not
positions.
limited to
Yeah.
following positions.
But to introduce it, saying that they have authority, which you would often have in bylaws. So you would say, and this is important because we're trying to say the select board has certain authorities in governing the town. So select board shall have the authority, and I would just state it broadly what that is, and then you go to positions that have the authority to appoint all officials and other personnel. And here's where the wordsmithing comes in. Something like, I don't know, required, or it deems necessary. It deems, these don't have to be approved at a town meeting, do they? If you were going to add a new inspector, for example, other than as a budget item, or would it?
No.
I don't think so.
No, I wouldn't, but
Okay.
it's kind of,
Or if you were going to eliminate highway superintendent, just to be, it's an absurd example, but you wouldn't have to come before the town meeting for that, would you?
Well, I remember one instance where they wanted to combine highway with
Water.
with water and cemetery, and it was called
The DPW.
DPW.
Okay.
That went before town meeting and it failed.
Okay. Why don't we just say, shall have the authority to appoint all officials and other personnel which it deems appropriate for the functioning of the town, or we would say effective functioning, or?
I would say that effective functioning.
Okay. Interesting. Of the town.
On a permanent or temporary basis.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because you may only need something short-term.
Yeah.
He says, comma,
well, yeah, whenever we have a building project, they have to appoint a
Yeah, on a
clerk of the
permanent-
works.
on a permanent or temporary basis, comma, including, but not, comma, but not limited to,
Yep.
comma. And I guess you could just have a colon
And
Yeah.
after
list.
that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
The
good.
select board shall have the authority to appoint
All officials
all officials
and other personnel,
and other,
no, yeah, and other personnel, which it deems, no commas necessary, other personnel which it deems appropriate,
which is deemed,
which it deems, yeah.
which
It deems,
it, okay,
it being the select board, yeah, which it deems appropriate for the effective functioning of the town on a permanent or temporary basis, comma, including comma, but not limited to, colon.
thank you.
Okay, that's a good one. All right. So we're just going to do that list.
So wait a second.
Okay.
Limited, but not limited to the following, or
No.
just?
No, just the colon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then do the list.
And then
Yep.
the list. Yep.
But we're going to
Okay.
add to that list the building inspector.
Right.
Yeah, unless you wanted to do the following, I don't think it makes any difference either way, right?
Okay. Instead of trying to list any of the others, like building inspector, could we do an all-inclusive, like what
Oh,
he
that-
was saying for F? That
Oh.
would encompass
We just did it,
anything.
we just did it in the introduction. So
Okay.
you don't need an F,
Okay,
yeah.
okay,
So it does two things. Doing it this way makes clear the select board has the authority to hire personnel, the final word on appointments in the town. And it also makes clear that it's not limited to those 5 positions.
perfect,
Okay.
Yeah.
good.
And then, moving on, serves as the licensing board.
Yeah, the select board serves as the licensing authority
I was to say, yeah.
rather than the board.
Ah,
Responsible for issuing and renewing liquor, and we added marijuana licenses. Are there any other licenses? Do they have to have licenses to sell lottery tickets? I mean,
We know they're supposed to, or they used to have, somebody used to have to be. And there's also been question about tag sale licenses.
Yeah. I don't know
That's
about
all
tag
with the
sale
town
license,
clerk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Between the town clerk and the police
Yeah.
department.
Tag sales.
yeah, tags, yes, raffles, yes.
Yeah, raffles, yeah.
But I'm thinking something to do with the state.
Car dealership is
As another
Yeah.
one.
another one that the select board serves as licensing authority.
Do we, rather than, do we have to specify here, or responsible for issuing and renewing all requisite licenses?
possible. Well, let me
Yeah.
ask you this, who
Yeah.
does things now?
Well,
Are there
just-
business licenses that the town is responsible for? Who approved, does the select
The
board
select
sign
board.
off on it? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so that includes dealerships and stuff, I assume, for people having businesses out of their own home, possibly. To the extent that they bother. I know some towns
Yeah.
make a fuss over that.
Yeah.
If it's above a certain size or you're doing certain
Yeah.
things. So, okay, there's liquor and marijuana licenses, so your suggestion was, because you'd make it generic, right?
Yes, issuing and renewing all requisite licenses and permits. But then how do people know
What
which
they are.
which are required and which are not? I mean,
Well,
Is there
you
that
could-
many?
So could we
there
set,
could be more in the
Okay.
future. That's
I
all.
know,
It's just kind of.
I know.
well, what if you
Yeah.
said for issuing and renewing liquor, comma, marijuana, comma, well, I'd start with business, actually, so issuing and renewing business, comma, liquor, comma, marijuana, comma, and all, yeah, and all other licenses.
State, you know. Did you say state? What did you say?
Other requisite license, yeah.
Okay. So issuing and renewing business, comma,
Liquor,
comma, marijuana, comma, and what were you suggesting, other, and other requisite licenses?
and, yeah. Okay.
So the select board serves as the licensing authority. Do we have responsible or just
Yes, the authority responsible for issuing and renewing.
responsible? Okay, thank you.
Don't even have to have the word licensing probably, if we're saying, right? If we're saying issuing and renewing licenses elsewhere.
Yeah.
No, that's redundant, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Excuse me.
Okay.
I have couple small suggestions in the last two sentences.
Yeah, I was just going to say that sounds a
Yeah.
little weird. Like,
So
not weird, but.
The select board may reject all bids, no comma, and add the words which are.
Can I see this version of it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what were you thinking, Lisa?
It didn't sound, yeah, because it
Yeah.
didn't sound, it didn't flow together when,
Yeah.
where it said the select board may reject all bids inadequate and/or not in the best interest of
Yeah.
the town.
So I don't,
yeah, that flows
without a
better,
comma
yeah.
before the which, yeah.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
see you.
All right, thank you.
I'll be back. And I'll see you guys. Let me know what I missed, let me know.
Okay. Well, the last
Thank
sentence,
you,
I'm
Lucy.
suggesting we add the word "the" before proceeds.
Proceeds. Yes,
Okay.
that's fine.
Add the,
So,
the.
How did you end up wording?
Thank you.
The next,
Thank you.
the next to the last one.
the what?
How did you end up rewording the next to the last
Oh,
one?
so the select board may reject all bids, no comma, which are inadequate and are not in the best interest of the town.
Now, inadequate or not.
And or not, as it is, as it's worded now, but we're just adding the words which are,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that gets rid of the select board.
Well, not rid of them, but,
Could I make,
Can always hope.
could I make a,
Yes.
I don't know, comment, suggestion, or whatever? When I was reviewing, like, we were gonna do general government, possibly, and I know it's a little further down the road. But if you go to general government, the first paragraph talks about.
which
the
article is that?
Article
Oh,
6.
okay.
It actually talks about the select board and then almost how they can close and, different roads and stuff. And it's like, I don't know why it would be under general government and not under select board, because it's the authority that they have.
Except, yeah, this looks to me like it might be kind of, There's no such thing really as general government, right? It's not a,
It's
it's
just
not a term
fragments.
that's, yeah,
of
it seems to be kind of
everything.
miscellaneous.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to make more work for us, but it just stuck out to me that if we're working on select board, that should go.
Well, and it looks like this is where they threw in things too, because it was amended, a couple of amendments
Yep.
thrown in here.
Yep.
It's like, well, where are we going to put it? No, let's put it in general government.
So,
It's,
To me, generally, we've talked about putting an organization chart.
yeah,
That would fit under general government. As would a description. I'm trying to organize it, and it's, yeah, because this is crossing both lines.
right.
and it's also near the bottom of the page there,
Yeah,
a 6, it talks about licensing.
I know.
Yeah.
Licensing junk dealers.
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh my God.
I can't find mine, so
Oh, yeah.
I give up. No, I probably,
I think it's an excellent point. I think we're going to have to figure this out. But Francine, what's your
No,
immediate impression?
I'm trying to put some logic to it, so a person picking up this document
can,
has to have an understanding of our form of town government and what it's composed of. Then, to me, in my mind, I guess, would be an organization chart. And then
Right.
after that, a description of each of the roles, starting with select board and then going on to the committees and the departments and, sort of as we're going here. But,
Right.
yeah,
and
we're
we have-
crossing lines.
We have town meetings, and we have.
And this has some things in it I never would think to look here. Remember, I was asking a half hour ago about, as I said, I'm not sure there's any place here where it talks about how bylaws are amended. Because I was
It's right-
wondering how
it's here.
bylaws are spelled, capitalized.
here.
Right, it's here, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't have guessed that it would be there.
And that would
So-
go with what we said would be how we're structured. Changes to not the form of government, but the functions of municipal government
well,
by bylaws or amendment, yeah.
we've changed so many of these because, or not following them, because we went to the town administrator and didn't do a thing about
Look at section
updating.
7, Article 7.
Afraid to.
Let's look at Article 7.
Uh-oh.
Restriction on issuances of local licenses or permits. We
And this
just
comes
went
out of
through
the
that.
state law, yeah, it's all in italics, so I'm
Yeah.
guessing that it
Yes.
comes
Yeah.
verbatim from,
So, yeah, it is getting very muddy.
let me ask you this. So looking at Article 6, and a couple of them, were amended, it looks like, at town meetings. Does it, or sometimes things come up in a warrant that doesn't talk about it being an amendment, but it is, after it's passed, people realize it, or do they just say, we're amending bylaws to provide? It doesn't necessarily show where it is. So could someone have made the decision afterwards, oh, well, we've just passed this amendment, it's not clear where it goes, let's stick it here? Or does the town meeting decide that?
Well, they just vote the
Usually, it would come from the select board, I believe.
Oh.
The select board would bring it to town meeting
Right.
to,
But then they just put the bylaw in wherever the new bylaw. Stick it in.
usually it goes to the end of the document of the bylaws.
Yeah.
It just goes.
Or somehow someone
But
decided
to
either...
make an amendment, you can amend
Yes, anything.
like, an amendment to Article 6 would be section whatever, and then you add it.
Let me ask, and you may have told me this before, what am I looking at? So when I'm looking at this marked up copy that has, it's not marked up other than with, through some computer program, software, lines through it, it has remarks like obsolete or redundant, clarity. Is that do the current bylaws read like that? Or is that
No.
something that was
No.
done the first time by the original bylaws review committee?
Yes, the first time
Got it.
from this group,
Yep.
wanted to kind of put notes in that reminded themselves why they did it that way.
Got it.
So obsolete or redundant, it showed up somewhere, and just leave it at that and move on. That's not going to appear in the
Yeah.
text that we
Yeah.
pass forward. But this whole other thing about licensing, and
Yeah.
so what we just wrote about the select board and their authority for licensing should belong here, or this should belong there.
Yeah. Well, we
Oh,
should
it's a
put
lot of stuff.
anything the select board has, should be under the select board.
I agree.
And not, I think as things come up, they've been added.
So we could, so I wonder if the state interprets MGL to include some general provisions for licensing, includes liquor and marijuana. As amended, as supplemented by other regulations they have, because there's regulations, I assume, the state has regulations for licensing marijuana, right?
Yeah.
So, one way, again, we could leave it the way that we're talking about doing it, and make reference to this article. Subject to, or as supplemented, subject to,
Article 7,
the
the restrictions okay.
right. I assume that that the state wants us to have this in the bylaws. I'm not sure. But
Well, it says that it was amended to add section 10/2015, and then was approved by the Attorney General January 22nd, 2016.
yeah.
So this is something new, probably, that they got handed.
And I think I mentioned it last time, it was, you can't, like the building inspector can't issue a building permit if that person still owes money
Money,
for
right,
another.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that was why this came
This is
about.
here, yes.
Why, what is there? Why the whole
Why
thing?
it says the tax collector has to annually furnish each department and board. We're in Article 7, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
Refer to as
she
license.
did start to do that.
right.
Yeah.
To make sure that people were not getting licenses or permits if their taxes are in arrears or they have other violations that need to be corrected before they move on.
Well, yeah. So there are lines, all this is italics, which leads me to believe that this comes maybe verbatim from the MGL.
Right, and this
On
is
the other
for me.
hand, there's some changes that are being, modifications that are being suggested, like in the second paragraph, a line near the end of the paragraph is a cross-out for not less than a 12-month period. Well, is that still in the state code, and someone thought that we should take it out here? It's not
I
clear what...
believe
Yeah.
that's what the state law says, because there was an issue.
So you mean that no longer has the for not less than a...
Because someone was late in paying their taxes and they were still applying for a license.
Yeah.
But you have to be in the rear for what, at least 12 months, I believe. I believe that's what the law had said.
But
I'd
where
have
did
to
that,
go back.
so is this not in the state law for not less than a 12-month period, you think? Or,
There was an issue with that, and I can't remember
Okay.
what it was.
well, it might help to to save us some time ultimately, and wasted energy. It might, I wonder whether we want to just check with Ed about this kind of thing, about what, does the state require that this be in here, or was it thought that it's necessary to have, even if the state doesn't require it? And what authority do we have to add to it?
Well, I
Or
think,
to
yeah, the
modify it?
citations of the general law kind of say that we do have the authority. I think we just wanted to make sure that we weren't allowing that one hand didn't know what the other hand was doing, and that there were people who were in arrears, whose life was going on, and they're, building more, adding more, whatever, without having met their prior obligations. And so I think people need to be notified that they can't do that. Like, this is the means by which we can deny them, and they say, well, how can you do that? You say, well, it's in the bylaws. We're just looking, right?
Unless you make reference to it, but without, having the whole thing there.
I don't think anyone wrote. I think this was
right.
lifted from.
And I'm not sure there's more than a few non-lawyers who've ever read this, and some of us who are lawyers and don't have to understand this can't understand it.
Right. Well, that's the other thing.
I don't.
I know,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that was
I
also
don't wanna
part of
read-
us
yeah.
doing this. How could maybe we rephrase this to essentially say the same thing, but in ways that people would understand?
Yeah, but again, I'd want to know how this got in, whether part of the reason this is in here is because the state wanted it, or whether the town thought we should have it in.
Well,
I
it
don't know.
says that in the very first sentence, the town of Southampton accepted the provisions of the following Mass General
Okay.
Law.
Okay.
And then any city or town which
Yeah.
accepts the provisions.
So we leave it in, and then we just have to figure out about any of these modifications that the earlier,
And how to integrate the
Without-
overlap between this and some of the select board functions.
well, and what I would do on that licensing here is I would, one way to do it is when talking about licensing in Article 3, and we have that whole sentence where,
Sorry. I just wanted to know, could you just let me know what the next meeting date is?
so at the end of that, so after license, other requisite licenses, we could put comma, subject to the provisions of, right now it's Article 7, right? We might
right.
end up changing that, but subject to the provisions of Article 7 of these bylaws. And do we want to say in any applicable state
Okay,
law,
Article
or do we just
7.
want to leave it at that? Yeah.
Contained in Article
Or you could just say subject to the provisions of, and not say,
Of.
yeah, of Article 7 of these
of
bylaws.
these bylaws. Yeah. I don't know.
I'm sorry.
It's just almost like I envision like spaghetti. You pull one strand and there's another strand that's attached to
Right.
something else and something
Yeah.
else. It's like,
So what do you, so you feel that might not do the trick?
no, I think it does. I mean,
Yeah.
we've got to find more ways of connecting the dots,
I think that's
because
perfect.
I think otherwise we're going to be here
How long have we been here?
Right.
Well,
We do want to
I
have
think,
an end in sight.
now, so, so we have this here, Article 3, which talked just about what was raised before about select board authority. And it's mentioned in other parts of the bylaws. I think it probably does not cause any problem by just having an Article 3, talks about some of the main ones, but also having these other articles, like the one that you pointed out, Janine, Article 6, I guess it was. And I think we should really decide whether to take Article 6 apart and assign it to different other articles, but that's another
And
question.
distribute it
But doesn't-
among the other
yeah, articles, but it doesn't hurt to have some of the select board authorities in other articles. That's going to happen
Yeah.
anyways. In any organization, you're going to find that, the executive board, if this nonprofit has the right to do such and such. So it's not all in the executive board authority. So I think that's okay. But Article 6 is something I don't know if we can tackle today, but we might want to think about as we go through the bylaws, whether
Right.
Well, we're going to need to
Yeah.
check all of them.
Yeah, we were just going to do that, and we were going to try to get through town clerk
Yeah.
and tax
Yeah,
collector, everything that Janine
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
But I'm
consolidated.
thinking of Article 6 is a little bit of a smorgasbord,
Yeah.
It just looks kind of weird, and I just wonder whether,
I mean, maybe what we can do
It's
is
just-
we go through and we find something, refer it onto that old Article 6.
okay.
And then when we get done, we can go back and see what all,
What we should,
what,
yeah.
So you, at the end, you want me to say refer to Article 6?
On
Huh?
the
No.
select board.
So go back
Right, on the
to,
select board.
this one here. Select board serves as the authority responsible for uniform licenses. And we
Yeah.
ended with, and other requisite licenses.
Subject to the...
Yeah, comma, yeah, subject to the provisions of Article 7 of these bylaws.
yeah.
Oh,
But,
yeah.
yeah, but then keep
Oh, I see.
that Article 6, just keep,
I don't,
refer to anytime we pick up something that,
Want me to put that in italics?
no,
No.
not on this, just
Okay.
up
No,
here.
I don't
Up
think you need
here.
a,
Okay.
I don't think it's necessary to put in Article 3 that there's other places in the bylaws that talk about things.
Yeah,
It can be done. I don't think we need to, but it's a question we might want to come back to, or someone else might suggest. I don't know.
no, I was speaking of the general government one. Anytime we pick up something that's kind of strange, keep it up here, that we're going to go back, or even mark it.
Okay,
Think about general government later.
okay.
Yeah.
And have a general government one that would include, among other things, I think, we need to have some sketch or outline of how the government works.
But that's why we
Right,
have an
that's what-
organization chart.
Yeah,
Right.
we need that, because I think it's much, much better now. But earlier, everybody thought they were separate, and they didn't have to do, the town administrator that we had at that time tried to get a finance committee together. No, I'm busy, I'm not coming to that meeting. Each of these different people were saying.
Yeah.
She couldn't even get them to meet. And now I think they beginning to see that
Well,
connectedness.
we have to, we have to define the structure for people and
Yeah,
go with
yeah, I
that.
think that
So I
makes
think
sense.
that will do that.
So in Article 6, though, there is, at the bottom, the thing about licensing of junk dealers and stuff. Article 6, I guess it now says 5 in Article
Yeah.
6. So it's on page 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the select board, they suggest read as may license suitable persons to be collector dealers and or keepers of shop for the
Yes.
purchase, sale, or
Shopping
barter of
areas.
junk. Oh, yeah, that's interesting. It's Victorian almost. Barter of junk, old metal, or secondhand articles, and no such person may operate a business without the required license. So, and then it talks about the next sentence, according to policy developed by the select
Yeah.
board, the town clerk issues permits to individuals on the short term. So that
we go.
should probably, in some way, although it kind of moves in a different direction from what we're talking about already in
But it
Article
could
3.
fit under Article
But
3.
I think it needs to fit into that paragraph
Okay.
that talks about licensing. And the
Yeah.
question is, does it need to be reworded? Because it almost,
Yes.
the way we word it now, it seems to cover it, but obviously someone thought it was important at some point to make this clear in the bylaws, and some people might be attached to it, I don't know.
But I think, this is showing how old these bylaws are, because there were people, and that's how they earned their living, was selling
Yeah.
stuff.
So there's a much
Yes.
bigger, okay.
Yeah. I think it's,
Well, I can remember the first tag sales that people had. They had to go down to the town clerk's office and get a permit. When I was way back when I was first in town.
Well, we do issue business certificates, but not licensing.
And what about tag sales now?
Okay, we don't do anything with tax sales right now
Okay.
because there was nothing in the bylaws, and the police chief at that time said, I can't collect the $5 for a tag sale if I don't have the authority to do that. So
Okay.
it was not in the bylaws.
So this is a policy that never was developed by the select board. It says, according to a policy developed by the select board, the town clerk issues permits to individuals holding short term.
I don't even know where.
Well, that might not be in the back. That's what was recommended, I guess.
My guess is that you're talking about,
or it was there and we want to keep it, the double
talking
line.
about going down to
Yeah, you know
the
what?
valley.
Yes.
I wonder if that would double line indicates new language that was
It
recommended.
does, yes.
Oh,
So
does.
it's interesting. So and this was only a couple of years ago.
Yep.
So someone thought it was important recently to have it.
well, they found in some places that people were having tag sales every other weekend and things like that. I know there was one you'd see advertised going into Northampton about twice a month. And what he was doing is he's collecting everything and putting it under tag
So like a
sale.
flea market, I mean, it's
Yeah.
kind of a regular running thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think they were trying to avoid things like that.
I was asked to come up with a bylaw for that purpose. And I researched other communities and what they had, and Heather at that time, the town administrator, and we actually came up with I thought it was a pretty good bylaw. And the select board at that time didn't want.
And it was on tax sales?
Yep.
Or, okay.
Yep.
So there's two things here in Article 6 there at the bottom of the page. One is, the second one is the tax sales, and the one before it is, collectors or dealers in junk, old metal, and secondhand articles. So,
But it's almost redundant
Yeah.
of what we have.
well, that's the question, is it? Now, could you, reading these bylaws, would you say business license, that wouldn't necessarily include a short-term tag sale, but I'm not sure people want to,
No,
but a short-term tag sale is different from the type of thing that was just mentioned, the kind of the ongoing
Yeah.
thing, right?
Yeah.
And it was a burden for the neighbors,
Yeah.
Yeah,
for that.
people don't want, yeah.
So,
But the first paragraph there about licensed collectors, dealers and stuff, I would think that would be, that's a business permit that the town would require,
Yeah.
right?
yes.
And there is a procedure, a process set up for that?
For businesses, yes.
Yeah, so if I want to sell junk, then I have to come to I go ahead and to the proper office of the town and apply for a license and pay the fee.
Have you seen that kind of a license?
Well, would be considered to be just another business license. Is there a business license right
Licenses
now?
are issued through the select board.
Right.
Business certificates, which is different, is issued through the town clerk's
Okay.
office.
And so we would,
Oh.
yeah, we get special permits, one-day license, I mean, that I've seen are the annual licenses that go to the businesses in town once a year.
Right.
And then the special one-day liquor license.
licenses.
That's all I've seen. I mean, there may be others, but,
Because you have to watch the zoning too.
yeah.
If you're living in a certain zone,
So the,
Business certificates that the town clerk issues are considered DBAs. It's only for the consumer's protection as to, well, who's behind this business.
so if I'm renting property back down Canada or leasing property, I'm going to have a business, a storefront, do I need to get a license or just a
Business certificate.
When would I need a license? For what type of situation? Is there such thing as a business license?
I think so, but I'm not positive.
Because we're now saying that there is. I mean, we're putting,
What would happen when someone would come to me and say that they wanted to open up a massage business over at Sheldon's. And I would make sure, I would always check to see what kind of business they were planning on, and refer them to the building inspector, who is also the zoning enforcement officer. So we would kind of cover that area. But as far as a business, we are not authorizing them that they can do it. We're just,
so they're not required.
They're kind of registering their business, more or
Yeah.
less, as
So
opposed
once
to
not-
getting
banks
Right,
need.
and it doesn't
need
come
that.
before the select board.
No.
So there aren't business licenses then in the town, or there
But
for
there
certain
are,
ones?
or business registrations.
but
To me, they're
it's
two different
licensing, like the car dealership, the used car dealership over on Pequot. That was a license.
Well, so we need
Yeah.
So
clarity.
little more work.
wait a minute, did the select board issue the license, or did Tom?
And Tom is,
The building inspector.
Building inspector.
well, what are those? Is it only ones that involve alcohol that you have to go through every year?
No, food, you know, like Big Y, I mean, this Big Y doesn't sell alcohol.
No,
But, you know, the ones who, I guess.
that have food.
Like anybody having a party at
Gets a one
Conant
day.
Park, the one
Has to
day.
get a license.
Liquor
Has to get a
One
permit.
day.
Yeah.
And that mobile.
And even the liquor store, like in town, they.
Oh, they get
have
a
their-
license
oh,
every,
you
yes.
need
Liquor
a one-day
stores,
license if you're having a party?
Yes.
in a
If
public
it's-
facility,
If it's at the park.
Not at your house, but,
in a public facility.
yeah.
Okay.
And there's a mobile bar that, has he come before while you've been on?
Oh, you mean the guy who does the motorcycle?
He drives out
Right.
for the
Yeah.
Harley Davidson.
He provides, Harley Davidson has like a one-day thing, and they sell alcohol as part of their picnic thing. And so he gets a one-day license,
Well,
yes.
but the man that owns that, the man that owns the drive up he's the one that's usually been at the select.
Right, and he's the one who gets the permit, because it's his business, he's operating it, yes.
And
on
he
their
was also at a private residence when they had I was going to say, they had a bicycle race. for a fundraiser for
Yeah.
something.
Was it last year, the year
Yeah,
before?
over on Glendale Road.
Yes, yes.
And then he was
My
going to
next door
come,
neighbor.
he was going to come back and, I mean, he would be there when they got back
Right,
from riding
right.
this bicycle race.
And they did have a license for that as well, a permit
Yeah.
for that, because I remember it was like, the address was like right next door to me, because those are the people who have the bicycle thing. Anyway, but getting back to this, so, I don't know, we put it together and take it apart and put it together again. I'm trying to,
But there's, I think we need to get clarification because of, just looking again at that thing about junk, it says that it's very clear, you have to be licensed. It essentially says, no such person may operate such a business without the required license. So there must be for that, you know, and yet, but then it's not clear that there is for the other stuff,
yeah.
for some of the other businesses, the storefronts.
Yeah,
So-
this really dates itself, but if we think about it in terms of what are current businesses,
Well,
could we describe them that way?
no, I think we need to see what the practice is first.
Okay.
In others, because Janine thinks that there's some things that clearly have not operating with licenses, that is a certificate or approval from the business inspector, or whatever. So the license has a particular meaning, and I don't mind saying licenses and or certificates, but the problem with that is that it's not clear that some of the stuff comes before the select board now.
Right.
So, and we're talking about what the select board's authority is in that. So I think we need to get clarification as to the practices, what is required to be licensed and who
And he
does
does
it.
it.
Who
And
has
I'm
the
looking,
authority.
and I'm looking here at the description of the town clerk for something that says
Oh.
that they issue business licenses.
Okay.
Does it say business license?
I'm looking.
It should be business certificates.
What paragraph are you in?
I'm
You're looking for it, yeah.
I'm looking for it. The next to the last paragraph, the town clerk, marriage license, proprietary logical research.
Oh, they're flammable.
There is nothing in here that says
But there's, yeah.
business license.
So, so here we have 3 different references. Well, first of all, is there something, Janine, when you, was it you that originally rewrote Article 3? Okay, on the select board. So was this in the bylaws to begin with, or is that something just, where did you get the sentence for about licensing, about licenses in the select
Okay.
board? Was that already in the bylaws?
Right.
Something to that effect?
The original.
Because if so, then we're talking about almost conflicting provisions in the bylaws or overlapping on licensing.
So you're
Article
talking about
3,
select board,
Article
yeah.
6, and Article 7.
Article 3, the original Article 3.
Oh, and Article 4, yeah. So,
I'm trying to see if this was the original.
no, it's
Or-
well, it's not.
Are we doing-
I think,
I'm getting.
yeah,
Let me-
in this
let me go
one
back to
here,
this
the
one.
marked up copy from the earlier committee.
Yeah, that's what
It's not in there, it doesn't show that it was ever in
So
there.
you're looking for Article 3.
Yeah, so in it,
Well, there was nothing in the town clerk originally.
I know.
There were 3 little sections.
oh, is this town clerk thing, is this new then?
That's all new.
The thing about the office license, about the dog licenses and flammable licenses, is that new?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The original had 3
Yeah,
lines.
this, right, exactly. This is what we have in the town clerks,
Okay.
that we notify people after they've been nominated.
So here's my suggestion. I'll be willing to write up the questions, and and send it to everyone, and then someone, I don't know, would be the person, someone needs to then talk with Ed. I don't know whether it be Lucy or what, but just about the authority, what the authority is now, and what type, first of all, what has to be licensed, and who has authority for these different things. I can make reference to, like, what's the practices with dog licenses and flammable licenses? What's the thing with tax sales, businesses, junk, all of that. And because eventually I think we need to see what is it that we issue, licenses, permits, certificates, and who has authority for each of those? Is there overlap? Is it, it's confusing. And I think there's some contradictions here, but until we have clarification, I think we can't go forward on trying to work that out.
On that particular thing,
Yeah.
so we can move on to something else.
So I'll be willing to send that, and then someone
Okay.
can go forward on, I'll send it to all of us, and then someone, whoever it is, who's going to be the point person with Ed, or on that, or?
I guess I can be, but I'm going to need a reminder.
And Lucy, yeah, and I guess Lucy would need to be involved, for sure. But I'll send something out.
Okay.
Okay, that.
And I have to remember that I have to do that.
The thing is, I cannot at this point. He's going to be ready to throw me out with all the stuff that's going on that I have to see about community preservation.
Yeah. Okay, so
So if you email that to us, is that considered part of the open? Are we still?
Well, you thought that it was okay last week to send us the revised bylaw, right? Article 3, and then you said, but no comment. But no comment.
Comment.
So I will send it, and then someone can just follow up, if we know who the follow-up person is.
just
Yeah.
remind me, okay, that's what
Okay, and I'm just saying
happened.
that Francine was gonna follow up,
Yeah.
and no comment, and
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can't comment, just,
I'll try to be thorough for just kind of raising the
Okay,
questions.
that would be
and
good.
then if we have the clarification, we'll know what
Okay.
to
Yeah.
do.
All right, so since it's after 3,
Oh,
okay, I'm going to say that we kind of conclude at this point and save the town clerk, the other sections, in addition to the changes, the questions that will be raised that hopefully will be answered by the next meeting. So we'll do the town clerk and the treasurer collector for next time,
and select board again.
and select board and Article 6.
don't be surprised if Ed doesn't have time in
Yeah, I
the
know.
next 3 weeks.
Oh, because of the town meeting and
Well,
elections?
he's
else.
negotiating 4 different
Oh,
contracts.
they're all up now?
Everything's up now. So it's-
When do the contracts expire, at the end of the month, or?
Well, Norris already expired. I think the police already expired. I believe the highway already expired.
Well, the schools did, both of them.
Well, the school, but he's not involved in
No,
both
he's-
schools. Norris expired, and the regional high school will expire in August.
And Norris did in August. And oh my goodness. they're
It
working on
already, it
content.
did last August. Regional was
Yeah.
this August.
That's why they're out there parading and screaming. and
Are they
yelling.
still doing that?
I don't know if they still.
Oh,
So when are we gonna meet again?
All right. Today is the 4th, next week would be the 12th. Is that right? No. Next week would be the 11th.
Something's ringing.
I'm not available
Okay.
that afternoon.
Okay.
I've got to see. That's ringing a bell somehow.
Do you want to try the,
No, Thursday looks okay. We have a caucus on
do we want to
Tuesday
meet
night.
just to get ourselves together next week? And if you can't make it.
I won't be able to make this
sort-
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe we should just wait. There's so
Okay.
much.
Then do the 18th? Does the 18th work?
Works for me.
Yeah, and that's school vacation, so I don't have to worry about my little student teachers.
So the 18th at what time? You
Is
wanna do
1 o'clock okay?
Works, 1's fine for me.
Can we do,
1:30 too?
well, if people want to do it early, I could do 1:15, otherwise later.
Let's say
Let's do-
1:30.
Does that work? And, okay.
April 18th, 1:30. Okay.
So we're going to do the 18th. Our next meeting is the 18th at 1:30. Okay, so we have an outline. I'll follow up on the questions related
To license.
to sorting out select board and Article 6.
Yeah.
And then we'll do the town clerk, the treasurer collector, if we can get to all of
But
that.
on the select, we're
And
having to
select
do
board,
with,
review select, yes.
but it's mainly the licensing we're talking about, right?
License,
And
yes.
who has authority and what is what are the practices?
Okay, then that's what we'll do. Does that
Okay.
work for everybody?
Works for me.
Okay. All right, so it is 3:15. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay. The Bylaws Advisory Committee is adjourning at 3:15 on Thursday, April 4th.
That's what I was.